Everybody, welcome back. We're going to do a short Kubernetes demo today, and what we're going to be doing here is taking a Java application, specifically a Spring Boot application, and deploying it up to Kubernetes. And the goal here will be to basically have Kubernetes automatically handle deployments, containerization, all of that kind of fun stuff. Um, and again, it's a Spring Boot app, so we're going to get a website type of application here. You could really package up any kind of application and deploy it with Kubernetes, but here we are kind of skipping some of the bare metal steps like building up Docker containers, doing build and then run and all that fun stuff. Here we're just deploying straight up to Kubernetes. So this will be a Codelab's demo here, and I'll, as usual, link will be in the description for that. This is one of the Codelabs, which delightfully works straight out of the box, so no changes that we have to worry about here. Only thing that we really need is Cloud Shell, and we're going to pull down something with Git. So page 2, usual boilerplate stuff, activate Cloud Shell, set up a project, set up billing, broken images, which didn't bode well, but when I ran through this again, it worked just fine, fortunately. So what we're going to do is I already cloned down this repository into my Cloud Shell. So this is in GKE demo. Oops, this is the wrong folder. Let's just reclone it because now I don't remember which folder it was in. So I've got too much junk in here. So let's make Kate's demo 2. So we'll go ahead and actually pull this down, I suppose. So going to Spring Boot, and it says go into the complete folder. And again, the actual application, basic hello world type of thing. So we can run Maven here to build it and run it temporarily. So we're going to see our build scripts running. Spring, delightful. Everything's up and running. Web preview, preview on 8080. Greetings from Spring Boot. App works. Delightful. Again, nothing too complicated here. We are saying that this is running on port 8080, and Maven is basically building that out for us. Change it to whatever port you would like. You just have to basically rebuild the thing. We are going to be running this on 8080 through Kubernetes as well later on, as you will see. So, app works, good stuff. Now, let's actually build an executable, or sorry, a deployable jar file. Not quite an executable. So that is built. And what we're going to do now is we have to enable the container registry. And again, Google runs their own Docker container registry. And I think actually now that I mentioned it, I'm not going to edit this out. I said earlier in the video we're skipping Docker. We are actually using Docker right here in this step. I forgot about that part. But we have enabled our registry. We're going to set our environment variable to get some project details. Yeah, I can hit the enter key. So this Google Cloud project variable, it's just the ID of the project, but that's going to be necessary for our container registry entry. And what this line here that we're doing now is, let me make this a little bit wider so we can see it. So we're building our Maven, using Maven to build our project, except now we're pushing it to the gcr.io registry, so we'll be able to see it up in our local container registry because we have it tagged with our project ID, and we're going to call it Hello Java version 1. So that's going to build. It doesn't take very long to build. It's a pretty simple application. But we can pop over to container registry while that's going, and we actually see that it was successful. Here's our Hello Java application. So we can now run this basically from Docker if we would like. So next step, let's just check to make sure it works, with Docker, because we have built a Docker image here. So what we're doing is we're going to run off of port 8080, this particular image, Hello Java version 1, see the exact same behavior in the Cloud Shell, and we can go to our web preview again. Greetings from Spring Boot. So this does work. What we did first was we ran the pure Java application, in a local preview. Now we're running the Docker version in a pure local preview. But it is now available on our repository. So that is basically just making sure things work. Okay, so the next step, we need to enable the compute engine and the container API. So go ahead and get those going. These will take a few moments, as will the next step. So I'm basically going to do the next one kind of off screen, because this will probably take about 5-ish minutes to enable and run. But what we're doing is we're going to create a Kubernetes cluster. So we're going to call it Hello Java cluster, 2 nodes, bare bones machine type, and we're going to say run in zone central C. So I will be back in a microsecond for you, plus whatever fade in I apply, and probably 5 to 10 minutes real world time. Screen, I ran these commands, and you start seeing some warnings, basically information about Kubernetes. So shielded GKEs are on by default. Here's how many pods how many nodes our pods can support based on what we have specified. So just, kind of important information if you're going deep down into specifying what your containers and your pods are actually going to be doing. So we have a cluster that has been created. If we go over to Kubernetes, our clusters, we see our cluster here, down, 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 there we go. 2 nodes, 2 CPUs, 7.5 gigs of memory. Life is good. That is all set. We could have done this in the GUI as well, as mentioned here in the little aside. Now we're going to start using the kube control command. And what we're going to be doing here is saying, let's create a deployment to our cluster, run this particular image, which is the one that you just pushed up to the container registry. And we're going to say use version 1, because that's all that there is right now. What's going to happen very, very soon is that we will have more than one version. Okay, so we have that up and running. Let's check to make sure that it's working. Get deployments, ready, good to go. Our kube controller is up and running. And we can also see our pods as well. So pods, deployments, life is good. Can also get this information from up here. I've got it kind of poorly shown, but here we can see our information that we need as well. Now, let's say that we have our cluster up and running. We can only access it internally right now. So if we wanted to work with this Kubernetes cluster internally, it's fine, it's good to go. If you want this to be externally accessible, we need to expose it to the internet, which is what the next step is doing here. Let's create a load balancer for Hello Java, link up port 8080 to port 8080, basically say this is the port that we're using. We now have a load balancer up and running, and we can check this out with the get services command. So we see our internal cluster, we see our load balancer application, which we just spun up. Right, if we look a little bit earlier, we only saw Kubernetes before. Here's the internal IP for both of them. Okay, so we just created the load balancer. Now when we get our services, you're going to see the internal IPs for the load balancer for the Kubernetes cluster. We also now see an external IP as well. Now, if you ran get services right after you created the service for the load balancer, this external IP would say pending, which means that it's not quite up and ready yet. Like with all of the other services, external IPs need to be dynamically assigned, unless you set it to be explicitly one IP, which is a completely separate topic. Just refresh it, basically run get services again. So what we can do now is we can go over to our browser, pop that in. It's not going to work because, as you guessed it, it runs on port 8080. Greetings from Spring Boot. So this is the exact same website that we saw before. Difference is, it is now managed by Kubernetes. It's running as a container application. We can now scale up and scale down as we need. We're basically letting Kubernetes manage everything for us. All of the headaches and concerns and all of that fun stuff. So, life is good now. Still not working. Okay. Oh, I know why. There we go. Sorry, I was having a minor mental breakdown. I kept trying to curl the external IP, wondering why it's not working. Oh, I just said it's port 8080, so that's why we're not getting anything. What we can also do is we can curl our external IP address. If we do kubectl get services, because I cleared everything out, service, curl 35.225.70.104, port 8080. There we go. So we can also check our, uncut. We can also check internally here. So if we do kube control get services, we can do curl 35.225.70.104, port 8080. There's our website. These other IPs aren't going to be accessible, at least from curl, because we haven't really exposed anything there. But life is good. We get a response. Now, let's go ahead and scale this up. So right now, if these servers get overloaded, it's not going to be able to scale up automatically. But if we suddenly need, which is exactly what this says right here, more capacity, let's spin up some extra replicas. So what we're going to do, kube control scale deployment, so scale the hello Java container. Now we're going to have 3 replicas running. And what we can do, let me clear this out, make this bigger, kube control get deployment. So we now have 3 out of 3. You might have remembered before this said 1 out of 1, and I glossed over it. That was how many replicates are currently running. Now we have 3 available. 3 are up and running. So good, good. It's not desired and current. Now it's ready and up to date. Or it's just ready. We can specify this stuff in configuration files, basically YAML files as well, but we're just doing it in the terminal here. But nothing's going to change if I refresh here. You know, if I were to run some kind of a denial of service type attack or just a load generation type of test, we could start seeing, watching the different containers taking over and using that, but be a bit of a diversion if we were to do that. Let's keep following along with the demo. And what we're going to do now is we're going to push a new version of this software up. So basically, we're going to make a local change. We're going to build it. We're going to see it working. Then we're going to push it up to the container registry and deploy it that way. So think of it like you need to make a new version of your application. So this is in source, main, Java, com, example, Spring Boot, hello controller. Again, very basic application here. Oh, wow, that is awful coloring. Deserts, please. So instead of greetings from Spring Boot, let's say, hey there, CIS680, how ya doing today? Okay, perfect. It's exactly what you want your application to say. So this is, again, I'm not going into Spring Boot. I'm not a Java person. I can modify and build Java files, so I'm good enough for this demo here. But what we're going to do, we could handle different routes and all that fun stuff if you wanted to run a web app. It'd probably be more fun for me if this was like a Flask or a Tornado application, but Java's fun to play around with here and there. So we have made this update. Now what we have to do is redeploy our, build and redeploy our container to the registry. And then after that, we'll tell Kubernetes to look at that version. So I'm going to run my build script again, except now you see this is version 2 instead of version 1. While that's building, let's go back to our container registry. And we're going to have to refresh this since I got a little bit too frisky with how quickly I got here. Hello, Java. Here's our 2 versions that you see there. Okay. And we could, let's do, what was the exact command so that I don't botch this up here. Back, here we go. Docker run. There's some extra parameters that I don't have on the top of my head. So Docker run, this particular project, except we're going to run version 2. Again, this is running locally. So let's get back to where we were in the Codelab. Scale up, rebuild. Okay. So now if I check my preview, ooh, there we go. There's our new text. The old one, if I refresh it, it still hasn't changed, right? Which is good. So we're going to cancel this. Our test works. And now what we have to do is update our deployment. So Basically, all we're doing is we're just changing the image for Kubernetes. So now we're just pointing it at version 2. Again, still the same container registry. We're still using our project ID here, just version 2. Okay, that has been updated. You may see a slight delay in updating here. If I were to refresh it like right after, you might get a broken page too. But if I give it a few seconds, it's going to, actually pull and rebuild everything, and then we'll get our new image. Sorry, our new built image. And there's my disruption to service. Apparently it was longer than I expected. It is kind of variable, I should say. So refresh, please. There we go. Now our text has changed. Same IP, same port, but now it's pointing at version 2. Possible too that you screwed up. So let's say that version 2 introduced some kind of a logical error. Doesn't work. It built, but doesn't work. We can roll it back as well. So rollout, undo, deployment, hello Java. So basically just roll back to the last version that you were using. And we'll give that another hot minute, and it will work. This depends, again, how long it takes to kind of reflect up the chain. While that's going, I'm going to go into my projects and get ready to delete this one so that I don't have it hanging around and cluttering up my stuff. Refresh. Refresh, please. The harder you click your mouse, the quicker it works. I believe that's the correct. Yep, see? Worked perfectly. All right, greetings from Spring Boot. That is enough for me for today. Hope this was helpful for you all. I will see you in the next video with a new project and a new demo to work on. All righty. Delete. Bye, everybody.